So now for a conversation on securing Pennsylvania's energy future. And for that discussion, we have a great team. Let me tell you about our moderator. Carl Marrara is the executive director of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, PMA, which many of you know. If you know PMA, give them a round of applause. Very good, very good. So he's been the executive director of the PMA for the last several years. He oversees the government affairs, external communications, and political strategy of the association, in addition to acting as a writer, producer, and reporter for PMA Perspective, which is a weekly half-hour news program on Pennsylvania business, government, and politics, and as an editor of the PMA Bulletin, which is, as we all know, a premier in-depth analysis of current issues facing Pennsylvania's businesses. So he's the chief lobbyist for the association, and with a tenure of more than a decade at PMA, Carl graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Elizabethtown College in 2009 and obtained his Master of Arts in Public Policy from New England College in 2012, where he now serves as a part-time lecturer. He's a lifelong Pennsylvanian hailing from Danville. He now calls Mechanicsburg his home, and he's married with a wife and 2 daughters. Please welcome Carl.
Well, Pennsylvania is the largest exporter of electricity, the second largest producer of natural gas, and the third largest producer of coal in all of America. We power the grid, and our production is essential to American energy leadership and national security. The environmental movement has changed from activism to obstructionism. Obstruction of domestic energy production doesn't lessen our dependence on energy. Instead, it simply shifts energy production to other locations, and there is nothing environmentally friendly about relying on Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia for needs that we can do much cleaner and safer here. Decisions on energy policy at the state level have national and global implications. Ultimately, Pennsylvania energy leadership is American energy leadership. And American energy leadership is essential to stabilize the geopolitics of the world. Pennsylvania is perhaps the most regulated, safest, and provides the best working conditions of any energy-producing state or nation. Both economically and environmentally, it is the smartest choice to want that activity to happen here as opposed to elsewhere in the world. But the left has pandered to environmental obstructionism. And this threatens countless Pennsylvania jobs, our overall economic competitiveness, and will actually hurt, not help, our environment. Today, I am joined by 3 amazing individuals who have been key to advocating for sensible energy policy, and I will introduce them to get their perspective on these important issues. First is State Representative Jim Struzzi from Indiana County. Representative Struzzi is in his 3rd term of service to his residents of the 62nd Legislative District. Like many citizens raised in Western Pennsylvania, Jim was instilled with the traditional values of hard work, personal integrity, and community service. He is committed to protecting those values at the state capitol while fighting to reduce government spending, eliminate burdensome taxes, create more family-sustaining jobs, improve the climate for businesses, and work to ensure the agricultural industry has the proper tools and support that it needs to be successful. And next is Brianna Howard. Brianna serves as the mayor of Mount Jewett, Pennsylvania, and is the external relations manager at the Independent Women's Forum. Prior to joining IWF, Brianna was the director of media strategies for the House Budget Committee Republicans, and she has the honor of serving in the Trump administration as special assistant to U.S. Secretary of Labor, Eugene Scalia. Brianna, thanks for lending us your voice in this important conversation. And we cannot forget my main man, Sean Steffee, who began working as a Boilermaker in 2002, serving in numerous supervisory roles throughout his career in the field. In 2017, Sean was elected as Local 154 Executive Board Trustee and began working actively with Local 154 LEAP Committee. He was appointed as a business agent in 2018 and was reelected as Executive Board Trustee in 2020 and was lead inspector in 2023. Sean is the chairman of the Local 154 LEAP Committee and has been at the political forefront of the Boilermaker issues, especially the fight against the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, more commonly known as RGGI, which we'll talk about in a bit. He is continuing to build a reputation in Western Pennsylvania as a strong advocate for unions, workers, and the entire fossil fuel industry. Sean, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Representative Struzzi, I'm going to start with you. You've been a tireless advocate against Governor Wolf's unilateral entry into the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, commonly referred to again as RGGI. How has this and potentially Governor Shapiro's PACER, which is a cap and tax plan, and PRESS, which is a massive expansion on government-mandated energy sources plan, how has that impacted your district, the Commonwealth's energy, and the Commonwealth's energy leadership as a whole?
Well, thank you, Carl, and good afternoon, everyone. In Indiana County, we have 2 coal-fired electric generation plants. Sean is my constituent. The Homer City Generating Station announced it was going to shut down last year. Now, I'll take you back a little bit, though, to when Governor Wolf first came forth with this idea to join the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It was my first year in office, and I heard this, and I thought, why would anyone who is governor of a state that is one of the largest energy exporters in this country, in this world, want to enter into a cap-and-trade system that basically taxes the emissions from our power plants, from our manufacturers? It made 0 sense to me, and today it makes 0 sense to me. So I stood up along with Sean and many of my colleagues to fight against the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. I introduced legislation, several sessions worth of legislation, to say that the governor had no right to do this by executive order because it did in fact create a tax. The Commonwealth Court recently sided with us to say that in fact it was a tax and that the governor had no right to enter into the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So you want to talk about the impacts. Prior to 2019, the fall of 2019, when Governor Wolf announced he was going to do this, $14 billion of new gas infrastructure had been built in Pennsylvania. You know how much has been built or even proposed since the governor announced the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative? Exactly, 0. Now, there was one power plant in Renovo that had been proposed prior to the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and unfortunately, because of extreme environmental groups, that plant in Renovo, Clinton County, $1.5 billion proposed investment in Pennsylvania in our energy infrastructure is gone. So we have 0 investment in Pennsylvania since the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative was announced. We felt it firsthand in Indiana County when the Homer City Generating Plant announced it was going to shut down 125 direct jobs, countless indirect jobs through the coal that was provided to the plant, all the other jobs, restaurants, the taxes for our school districts. It's a big impact. We felt it firsthand in Indiana County. And then you look at the investment that I mentioned, and Sean will tell you, I know he will, that our jobs are going to Ohio and West Virginia. So when Governor Shapiro announced that he was, first of all, going to appeal the Commonwealth Court decision that RGGI was in fact a tax, and he did it on the grounds that not because of RGGI, but because he needed to have the power to do that, which I think, again, is fundamentally wrong. You cannot create a tax by executive caveat. And so, the impacts of this continue to unfold. And now with this new proposal that the governor has come forth with, the clever acronyms that they come up with, which don't mean anything to me, again, when he says he's tired of losing to Ohio and West Virginia, we're going to keep losing to Ohio and West Virginia if we continue to propose taxes on our most valuable resources here in PA. So, thank you.
Sean, Representative Struzzi hit on this really well. It actually took a little bit of my question, which is I actually love, because you said that there has not been a single natural gas plant proposed in Pennsylvania since Governor Wolf unilaterally took us into RGGI. But where is the work going? Why is it going there? And then a follow-up to that would be, what does it all mean for our electric grid reliability in Pennsylvania and throughout really the entire Northeast United States?
That's a great question, Carl, and thanks for having me on here. And hello, everybody, today. Good afternoon. So the Boilermakers, we've been around for 130 years. We're industrial, fossil fuel driven. Build and maintain coal, natural gas, nuclear power plants, paper mills, steel mills, So everything that's basically fossil fuel driven. So I have 24 counties in Pennsylvania. I have 2 in Ohio and 2 in West Virginia. My members are currently working in Ohio and West Virginia building energy infrastructure. So I can give you a great example. So Lordstown, 30 minutes across the border, okay? They already have 1 natural gas plant there. It came online in 2019. They're currently building another one, 1,100 megawatts. 1,000 construction jobs, okay? That plant, earlier today, we had a guy talking about education here. That facility right there being built will give, for 15 years guaranteed, $1 million a year will go to that school district. $500,000 a year is gonna go to that community, okay? And it's also going in and doing renovations on that local school district. So we have 15 mega brownfields. These are plants that we lost, like Representative Struzzi talked about. Homer City, Masontown, Bruce, I can go on. There's a bunch of them. Well, they're building that infrastructure now in Ohio, and they're building it with new state-of-the-art technology that the turbines can burn a blend of hydrogen and natural gas, okay? So they're getting ready for this changeover. But what that does is, and this is where it falls in with the manufacturing sector we were talking about, Carl, their manufacturing is booming in Ohio. They need reliable electricity to, meet the demands of the manufacturing sector. So you got, a $20 billion chip plant going in Ohio. You got many battery plants that are gonna manufacture battery. And the one that really is, I guess shouldn't make you laugh, but it does. They're building, First Solar's building the largest solar manufacturing facility on the Northeast. And what are they getting powered by? Fossil fuels, natural gas, okay? So we're buying solar panels off of First Solar to install in Pennsylvania while our natural gas is being built in Ohio. These are jobs that are great paying blue collar jobs, not only union and non-union, they are the pinnacle of a blue collar job. Okay, we need to continue to build this infrastructure out. So Ohio is not, when they're gonna finish this project, they're gonna build another one in Harrison County, and then they're gonna build another one in Oregon County, Ohio. It's to send electricity, reliable electricity in the manufacturing sector. So we need to build more manufacturing, get this manufacturing back into Pennsylvania. These jobs that come from the manufacturing puts kids in our school districts, and these facilities put taxes in our school districts, and that's what makes the economy go around. I'm no expert, I'm a Boilermaker, but it's pretty easy to figure out. And if we're going to move on in the future with EVs and the whole 9 yards, we need reliable electricity, and it's got to come from natural gas. And like you said earlier, Pennsylvania is the 2nd largest natural gas producer in the country, only behind Texas. And to put that in perspective, we produced more natural gas than the Nord Stream 1 produced going all to Europe, right here in Pennsylvania. We need to take it to the next step. And these natural gas producers want to be transparent and do it environmentally friendly, and the Boilermakers want to be a part of that solution. We need to build it out on an all the above energy policy. And that includes, I'm not against solar and wind, but it's not going to carry us to the next level with artificial intelligence and data centers and everything else. We need natural gas, we need coal, we need nuclear, and we need renewables and what comes with it.
Sean, I'm so glad, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up the community building aspect that energy and manufacturing create. And we have Brianna here, and you are a mayor of a small town, so you understand all this very, very well. But in addition to new government taxes on energy, excessive regulations are also a significant barrier to growth that you've seen as well. You've seen it firsthand. Tell us what your experience has been, and then also give us some insights as to how energy manufacturing really are community builders.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carl. So the story of obstructionism in the energy industry is nothing new. This is an old story that's been happening for years and years. My family is a 4th generation energy producing family. I'm a proud roughneck. I come from a long line of roughnecks that they wear that title proudly. My brothers did not graduate from college. My dad didn't even graduate from high school, and he runs in operates an independent oil and gas company in McKean County, Pennsylvania. I'm from the other side of the state. I'm very happy to be here today to talk about this because it's my story, right? It's where I come from. There's a great picture of my grandfather holding up a sign here in Harrisburg on the steps of the Capitol that says, "Casey goes to lunch and we go to jail." And it's a true testament to the fact that this has been happening for a long time. Energy producers have been fighting back against the government for years because, matter of fact, they just don't like energy producers. They don't want energy to be extracted in this state. And I think there's just a fundamental misunderstanding of what energy extraction is and how important it is to our state's economy and to our nation's place in this global economy. So, and as far as the community building, I mean, I've come from a very, very low-income community, a low-income county in McKean County. The average income is about $30,000 per individual in my town. And so, you know, the energy industry provides good-paying jobs in our community, and it contributes to across the board, right? You have people who work in the energy industry at companies, small companies like my family's, and other related energy businesses. And not only do they work at these companies, but they're the ones who, you know, donate to the Little League team. They donate to, you know, your child's softball teams. They're there when you need them. They're the ones who have the equipment that they you know, are being borrowed. It sounds silly, but these are just small things that really, really matter in these small communities like mine. So, and you know, when the government targets small producers like my family's, it really makes a huge difference in a negative way. So a really distinct memory of my childhood, and part of the reason that I've been, you know, advocating for the energy industry my whole life is when I was a kid, I remember distinctly 2 Forest Service sort of agents came to our door and asked, my dad's name is Ted, and said, you know, again, my dad's a small producer, right? This is a small company of like 20 people who are drilling and fracking in Pennsylvania, and said, "Where's Ted?" Because my dad had cut down a tree on a Forest Service road, and these guys were not happy about it. So I think that just goes to show how intense these federal agents, you know, of the law, right? They think they're cops, how intense their rule over the energy industry is. So the obstructionism is real, and it's been happening for a long time. It's really nothing new.
So Representative Struzzi, I watched the Pennsylvania House budget hearings, and you specifically asked the Acting Secretary of Environmental Protection if there were plans for a cap-and-trade type program. What spurred you to ask this question? What was her response? And what happened just 2 weeks later?
Well, essentially, the questioning of the deputy secretary, or the acting secretary, revolved around a visit that we had in Indiana County at the Conemaugh power plant. The Conemaugh station takes reclaimed coal, they take abandoned refuse piles, and they turn that into energy, and then they turn these ugly eyesores that have acid mine drainage and all that into community parks, into green spaces. They're actually doing more for the environment than Reggie would do, you know, on a local level. And so I was there along with a number of my colleagues from the House and the Senate, and she was there. And we went through the whole course. We did a tour. We went out to see these sites. We did a tour of the power plant, saw all the good work they're doing, you know, 100+ jobs. And then not one mention from her about the governor's plans to appeal the Reggie decision, or any mention of him having his own cap-and-trade system. So I leave the event at the power plant, and I'm traveling back home at the northern part of Indiana County, and I hear on the radio, literally 5 minutes after I leave, that the governor is appealing the Reggie decision. So I'm thinking, now, did she sit there the whole time knowing this, listening to these guys from the power plant talk about how bad Reggie was, how Reggie would put them out of business, and talking about the good work they're doing? Did she sit there and listen to this and not even acknowledge that she knew the governor was going to do this? So I'm on the House Appropriations Committee. I had an opportunity to ask her this question during one of the budget hearings. And she said that she had no idea that the governor was going to appeal the Reggie decision. Now, I said, you're the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection, and you had no idea the governor was going to do this? So that tells me, as I said earlier, it's not about the environment. It's about the governor's power. You know, and that was, I mean, it was disappointing to me overall. I'm just appalled that the governor is even appealing that decision, and then he comes forth with his own cap and trade, whatever acronym it is. Yeah, it's just frustrating, the communication, the governing by press release, and everything else that this administration is doing when we have the resources to lower taxes, we have the resources to create more jobs, we have the resources to make our communities safer right under our feet, and we're not capitalizing it. In fact, we're punishing it and literally trying to put the fossil fuel industry out of business.
Sean, what can you say about the Pennsylvania labor force that you helped to recruit, train, and deploy here in our Commonwealth? And I said it before, but I mean, I view Pennsylvania as the safest, most secure, and most environmentally beneficial place for this energy development to be occurring. But how do you and your members live that?
Well, our training programs are second to none. We're all self-funded. We're not taking a penny off of anybody. Everything is self-funded through our unions, or from the steam fitters to the Boilermakers. So for me as a Boilermaker right now, I'm not growing my apprenticeship program because I can't keep our members having a hard time keeping them working in PA, and I can't go to a young kid like, hey, come on in and I'm going to send you to, North Dakota to go to work. There's a lot of work in Wyoming, North Dakota. We're trained to build heavy industrial, infrastructure and energy, and some of them are energy, engineering marvels like the cracker, okay? And this isn't, people are trained to spot weld fenders on a tricycle. These are high pressure tube welders, steam fitters, the whole 9 yards, that heavy riggers, using some of the largest cranes in the world to build the cracker. So now these guys are like, they're not going to stick around for a green job building a solar farm, okay? It's not happening. They're $15, $16 an hour jobs. When they give you this, hey, transition into a green job, that's a bunch of BS, okay? These guys are going to go where the money is in another state, and they're going to build this infrastructure. And for me right now, it's Ohio and West Virginia. West Virginia wants to build a great big natural gas plant. Dodgeville, and like I told you earlier, the ones that are going to go in Ohio. So these guys are going to go. It's not like they're going to Texas to work. They're going just across the border. But we're ready to build it out right now in Western PA. And the energy guys in the fracking industry, Marcel, them are highly skilled jobs too. And, they're being stagnated right now too. We got to move forward here. This shouldn't even be a political issue. It's a luxury that we all want with energy, from our cell phones to the energy produced and electric turning your light switches on. It's what we got to have. And I don't understand why we're trying to do things that put us in the reverse. And we're ready to build it out, but if we keep going down the path we're going, we're not going to have that workforce. They're going to move, and they're going to go where the work is.
Brianna, families sitting around the kitchen table are balancing checkbooks, and they're hurting because of the drastic rise of inflation, and energy costs are a big part of that because of government intervention. What would a new additional tax on energy, like the one that Governor Shapiro just announced a few weeks ago, mean for everyday Pennsylvanians?
Yeah, Carl, that's a good question, and that's a hard question because, like I said, these are very limited income Pennsylvanians and Americans, really, and energy bills are already through the roof. I mean, the decisions coming from Washington are already hurting people, and any additional tax in Pennsylvania, especially folks where I live, are living on $30,000. I mean, that's a very limited income, and any additional tax on these folks is going to hurt. And I think especially when you think about how it trickles down to the price of additional goods, right? The price of how it's going to impact food prices, especially where we live. It's not only is it the price of food, but availability of food, the additional implications for, trucking and other related industries. I think that's a huge part of the rural part of the state that I think sometimes isn't, always talked about. We see this in areas like mine. The local grocery store shut down 2 years ago in my town. And since then, the food insecurity that exists in small towns sometimes, and these things are all related, and I think those pieces that are missing from that puzzle that folks sometimes in Harrisburg miss out on because they're not seeing how folks in rural Pennsylvania are living. And I think any additional tax on energy, of course, is going to impact energy bills, and that's just unsustainable for folks on limited incomes, especially the elderly Pennsylvanians who are really fixed. But those who are just trying to feed their children, I mean, the price of food is ultimately going to raise from that. And I think that's a huge factor that we have to consider here. And that's something that I think about. I mean, in my own community, I can't even go to the grocery store. I have to drive 30 miles to go get groceries. Like, those things really, really matter for everyone in the community like mine, so.
Representative Struzzi, a quick one, because we're running short on time, but I wanted to get this in. So your colleagues in West Virginia, in their legislature, passed a session ago a bill to expedite and incentivize the construction of natural gas power plants. And they actually cited Pennsylvania's environmental progress in our creation of new natural gas power plants as a reason to do that. How has the utilization of natural gas benefited the environment here in Pennsylvania?
Well, when they talk about clean energy, that's natural gas. You have to separate what's clean and what's renewable. And if you talk about reliability, okay, natural gas, and you can do this on your own phone if you want. You can pull up the PJM grid, okay? It's an app, you can download it. You can see the breakdown of the power. I don't know if you can see it around the room, but this big blue area right here is natural gas. That's what's powering the grid right now. So we have it, we need to invest in it, and we need to make sure that our jobs that Sean's talking about, all of our resources aren't going to other states. Now, we're not just kicking the governor's plan around. We have our own plan. My colleagues in the House and I have introduced energy legislation, or we will be introducing. We put out co-sponsor memos to create a Department of Energy in this Commonwealth. We don't have a Department of Energy. We have an Environmental Protection Agency that's actually dictating our energy policy. It should be the other way around, or at least in conjunction, so that we can capitalize on our resources, not just approach energy production from an environmental standpoint. I think that's the first thing we need to do, and we need to make sure that we have grid reliability. I'll be quick, Sean.
You're good.
Or Carl, I'm sorry.
Very, very important.
And, Homer City generating plant shut down. They're not producing power right now. That baseload energy is what you need. During Winter Storm Elliott in 2022, on Christmas Eve, there wasn't enough energy to power the grid. And do you know what saved Christmas? And I've said this before, coal. Coal saved Christmas because you had that baseload energy on demand. We need to make sure that that continues to exist. We should be investing in all forms of energy production, but realizing that our big three, nuclear, coal, and gas, need to be there on those days when solar and wind are not going to get it done. To replace the amount of energy that comes from the Homer City generating station, 10 million solar panels. 10 million solar panels on 5,000 acres of land is what you would need to replace the energy produced by one power plant in Homer City. 704 windmills. Could you see that? 704 massive windmills in place of one power plant just to replace that energy? Makes no sense.
Well, some of your colleagues, yeah, absolutely. And to that point, some back of the envelope math, some of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle in the Pennsylvania General Assembly wanted to pass 30% solar mandates by 2030. In order to achieve that, you would have to clear cut and put a solar panel on every square inch of Philadelphia, Delaware, and Chester County. It's 1/3, and you'd still be 600 square miles short. It's the equivalent of 1/3 of all state forest land. That's what we're up against. Representative Struzzi, you actually answered my last question, so I'm going to ask this to Sean and then Brianna, but it was, what would you do to encourage energy development in Pennsylvania? What opportunities exist and why are they so important?
Well, I think the big thing that's coming now is going to be using our natural gas to produce blue hydrogen, okay? And I think that is definitely a way of the future. It's cleaner. But we like Jim said earlier, we can't forget about coal. So we got to keep our coal in the mix. We need an all the above energy approach here. And the coal, nobody was yelling and complaining when we had the winter storm here for 4 days when coal was out producing natural gas. Nobody was saying, hey, get rid of the coal. The Christmas lights were on for everybody. But then once that storm was over, then yeah, let's get rid of it. So we need to keep our coal facilities. We need to keep them till we can start transitioning to maybe hydrogen, and natural gas is the future, and nuclear, the modular nukes. We got to go there, and we got to keep, wherever it's geographically, good to put the renewables, then put them. but they're intermittent, they're unreliable, and it is not going to energize our state or our country in the future. And they're trying to come up with what you said, 34 gigawatts by 2035. That's 34,000 megawatts, okay? And Jim just pulled up the grid. If you look at renewables, what's it producing? About 6,000 megawatts probably today.
Tiny little sliver.
There's no way we can't get there. It's impossible. So we got to look at the data. We got to be realistic, and let's go with a realistic approach and get the smart people to the table here that understand, and let's take it the right way.
Brianna, real fast, your recommendations to state lawmakers.
I think we need to get our finger off of business people. I think we need to unleash our natural gas capacity in Pennsylvania. I think we need to change the culture of work in Pennsylvania and allow blue-collar workers to do what they need to do.
Well, thank you all for your attention, and let's thank this wonderful panel.